And so I think that I was able to say hello and introduce myself, but one more time, my name is Jamie Stickle. I'm the Director of Economic Development for the City of Canby. I've been here with the city and in Canby for just under 10 years. So in June, it will be 10 years. I love this community. It's the longest place I've ever lived in my entire life. And so one of the things I love the most about this community is that we show up for each other and to have conversations. And I know that there's been some dialogue in the past and there will be dialogue tonight and hopefully again in the future. I have cards up here. I think most of you got my contact information, which if you got the postcard that didn't say the location, or you got the agenda that said the wrong time, both of those have my correct email and phone number, mobile phone on it. So please use it if you need. I'm here morning, noon, and night. So we're going to kind of go around and introduce ourselves, even though I know a lot of you guys know each other, just to make sure that if there's someone in the room who is new to the group or be part of Bike and Ped or City Council, that we can all kind of show and tell who we're here with, from, representing. So I'll turn it over to you first, and then once we go around the room, tables first, then around the outside, come up here, and then I'll point to the wonderful people who I'm turning my back to, and they can announce themselves on Zoom as well. So, Mr. Miller.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Dan Miller. I work for the National Park Service. Don't worry, no one's talking about putting this trail as a national park. My role is I work for a program that, can you all hear me? Am I talking loud enough? Can you hear me on Zoom?
Yes.
Okay. My role is to actually not work in a national park unit. What I do is I respond to requests from assistance, cities, counties, state entities that are wanting to do some sort of outdoor recreation or conservation project. They apply to my program like a grant, but instead of getting money, what they technical assistance. So my role here is responding to a request of assistance from the city of Canby to help the city of Canby figure out the issues that are involved with developing the next section of the trail on the old logging road and I apologize, I just got back from spring break, but from 13th to the washed out bridge. Now, the city may or may not be able to build the section of trail where the road is washed out, like half a mile or so north of the washed out bridge. But that's the section that we're going to be focused on tonight. Now, I know a lot of you are here that live south of the washed out bridge. That's great. We want to hear from you too. But most importantly, we want to hear from those landowners that live in that section of trail. And before I go any further, I want to thank every one of you, whether you're on Zoom or out here, for taking the time to come out tonight and to hear what's going on, like directly, so you don't hear about it from your neighbors, and to actually take the time to engage. I want to hear about what your issues are. Particularly, he's like, dude, you don't want to hear my issues, man. I do. I live in a small town northeast of here called White Salmon, Washington. And I live immediately, since I've lived in this town, within 100 yards of my house, they've developed a bike park, a trail, and I live above a gun club, but that gun club was there before I moved there. So I know about issues and how things can change, how you are concerned about them, because I certainly was, and I was you on the other side of the table. And my role is, and my only role here is to get out the issues and to try to work and solve through them. So the city has, and we'll talk about this in a second, but the city has that old rail or that old logging road corridor. So they own that. And so the question isn't are we going to be developing a trail? The question is how do we develop the trail to make it work best for the landowners that are along it and also the community in general? So that's my role here tonight, is to talk with you all, engage with you all, find out what those issues are. And so I ask you to speak your mind, but to do it courteously towards the city employees, to myself and to everyone else in the room. But I do want to hear what you have to say. Okay, if you get a little bit heated, I understand, but let's just try to keep it respectful. That's all that I ask. So we are going to talk a little bit about what has happened to date. And I'm going to let the city kind of talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to get into some questions and answers from you all about what they've said. And then we're going to jump right into talking about what are your issues and what you see as the opportunities and your concerns and how we can make this trail work for you, whatever it may be. So again, thank you all for coming out and for being here and engaging. I appreciate it. So let's hear a little bit about where we're at and what's happened to date.
So before
Introductions. Thank you.
Right, I was gonna say before that, introductions, recording, you know, with property, you could just say, I'm a resident. Since we have a sign-in sheet, if you were able to sign in on your way in, that is great. If for some reason you weren't able to, right at the door, and you'd like to sign in on your way out, that's wonderful. I just want to let you know, the reason it says address is just because if some of our information is outdated, like I know, I'm going to pick on Nick Gibbs here in the back, because they purchased a house out there. The property and owner information, when I was kind of gifted this project, get to work with all you fine people. When I was gifted this project, it has the information that was available at that time. So the address is just so that we can, you know, make sure that we are connecting with the property owners, you know, along that trail. We sent out postcards and did those kinds of things. Emails, again, and phone numbers. It's just so that if we have another meeting like this or another opportunity to come together and engage as stakeholders, you know, that there are multiple ways for the city and myself to kind of touch base with you. It's not so that I can show up at your front door asking for cookies, but I might. So, you know, I hope that you have cookies on that day. But that's what that is for. It's not that we're going to put you on and spam you and, you know, force you into volunteering for the 4th of July or anything, unless you'd like to, and then see Tyler after. So I'll start with you. You want to go ahead?
my name is Ken Baker. This is my wife, Georgia Baker. We live on Elisha Road, very north end of Elisha Road. Live on a Century Farm there, farm grounds.
And
Lived in Canby all our life.
would it be helpful to let us, I know where exactly you live, but would it be helpful to know if they live north or south of the logging bridge?
Sure.
Okay,
Because I don't know that he understands. So
sure. Our property is adjacent to Elisha Road at the very north end where it dead ends at the river. So that's where we live. So we're, I guess, south of the bridge.
Thanks.
Yep.
We're Steve and Mary Jane Cook. We live on LH Road South. Baxford Road. Farm along the road.
If you all, I appreciate that. If you all can talk as loud as you comfortably can so the folks on Zoom can, that would be good. But you don't have to.
I'm gonna comment on that real quick. I have tried to listen to Zoom meetings in this facility and cannot hear people based on the location of where you have. I don't know that you're actually meeting the requirement for open access. It's that bad.
So I'm looking to our city administrator. That's something that we're working on, but thank you. And I'll also make sure that I'm following up with our city recorder who helps to organize these meetings so that we can do a better job to do that. And that's also, you know, why we have the sign in, so we can also make sure that we're capturing, and maybe if there's a need, we can have people come up to the microphone.
Either that or move it in front of you, because right now it's behind.
Right.
Who's next?
Yes, hi, I'm
Hi.
Matt. This is Michelle, my wife, Matt and Michelle Latanzi. We're Tree Frog Farm here. We're actually at ground zero. Along with Neil. So yeah, we come together right at the place you're talking about. And well, here is there, how that's gonna work. But here,
Don Morgan, property owner of the South.
All the stakeholders are gonna want to.
Also a property owner on a different one, my father-in-law.
And you're sitting right next to each other. You seem to enjoy it. That's excellent.
Rick and Kay Malinsky were property owners on Elisha South Bridge.
Stop. Okay, thank you.
Roger and Julie McKinnon, we are property owners, south and wall, Fourth Road, right where it is.
Okay.
Cindy Kirk, I'm a hazelnut farmer, east ground both sides.
On both sides, and is your hazelnut farm, is it on the section that we're talking about? or south?
Right at the Broken Bridge.
Okay, right at the Broken Bridge. Okay, thanks.
I'm Dan Carpenter and my wife Nancy Carpenter. We live south of the bridge, right at the end of Elijah.
Okay.
Jason Paolo, past president of Camden Road Gun Club, represent about 700 voices here. We own property on both sides of the road, starting at 13th, going all the way to the first corner on Fourth Road.
I'm glad you're here.
Other neighbors.
Thanks for coming out.
And I'm Doug Hill, and I'm the current president of Camden Road. Same concerns, or same description.
Thank you.
I'm Bonnie Dunham, this is my husband Mark, and we own a hazelnut farm south of the bridge. I guess on the east side, right next to Maxford Road.
Great, thanks for coming out.
I'm Chris Aiken. This is my husband, Joe, and we're a property owner. We would be on the north side of the bridge, and our property has Milk Creek that runs through it. So the little bridge that is on the logging road is on the corners of our property.
Thank you.
I'll introduce myself in a minute, so. Any,
Tyler Eisner,
Test.
Economic Development and Tourism Coordinator with the City of Camden.
we found a microphone.
I'm Jerry Nelzine with Canby Public Works Department. Eric and Patty Longstreet, we're at the north end of the logging road. We own a hazelnut farm there on the end.
Neil Leland, I live, I guess, at ground zero two, as you would say. And the proposed path runs right through my property. I own property on both sides, clear back to the Molalla River. Been there for about 50 years.
Richard Dowdy, I live across the road from Neil. On your parametrics original, you had talked about Lily Lane being a mid-trail access. Would it come right past my house?
Tim Samuels, the president of the Oregon Pacific Railroad. And basically the trail starts at Highway 99. And we have about 2.5 miles of railroad right of way that abuts the existing trail and what is possibly going to be a new trail.
Glad you're here.
I'm Jeff Springer. I'm part of the Canby Bike and Ped Committee.
Matu Sprikowski, I'm a reporter with Capital Press. It's an agricultural publication.
Russ Heineman, I'm with the Bike and Pedestrian Committee.
And Russ, if you want to move your chair out a little bit, nobody puts baby in the corner. Nobody needs to put you in the corner. We can have you. I know. I'm always, more engagement is better. So just, and I didn't hear the name from the Capital Press, but if you want to move out too, just so that you guys don't feel like you're tucked in a metal detector.
Nick Gibbs. I moved in really recently, just next to the Long Streets, about 1.5 miles past the gun club. House is right on Malala Forest Road.
Hi, my name's Gary Feist, and I have property about 100 yards from 13th Avenue where the trail is supposed to start. And I have a welding shop there where semis are pulling out quite often onto the old logging road.
Dennis and Cindy Carnegie, we've lived out there for about 27 years. My wife was born and raised right there at the north end of the property. Her grandpa owned both sides of the logging road, which was sold to the gun club. Also a Canby Rod and Gun Club member for about 42 years.
Mitch and Sarah Moggenheimer. We live on the north side of the logging road of the bridge area that you're talking about. We have property on both sides of the road.
Hi, my name is Jim Davis. I'm the co-chair, vice chair of the Park and Rec Committee.
City Council President Tracy Hensley.
Vicky Couture, our property is on the south side.
Nancy Carpenter. Yes, we're on the south side, but we're right at the edge there.
Sorry.
I'm Cliff Ash and I'm on the Bike Ped Committee.
And then we have a couple more, and then I'll call on the individual Zoom people.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm Joe Lindsay. I'm the city attorney.
And hello, I'm Scott Archer, the city administrator for Canby.
And I do think that this gentleman who talked about needing to hear, you're going to regret that a microphone was ever put into my hand. Just kidding. Nobody ever complains about not being able to hear me, unfortunately. Bruce, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm the chair of the Clackamas County Pedestrian and Bike Advisory Committee. I'm also on Canby Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
Great, thank you. Scott Trexler, could you go ahead?
Yes, hello, Scott Trexler with the Malala River Watch Watershed Council, currently vice chair, 41-year Canby resident.
Welcome. And then Mike. Oh, you have to unmute. I'm sorry, I muted. We will have to have the participants on Zoom mute just because we have it up so loud. It's very loud, but unmute so you can share. Or maybe I can unmute you. Here we go.
Maybe you can type in the chat and we can read it.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Yes, I'm Mike Hemmelstrand. I'm in the Bike and Pedestrian Committee. And yeah.
Thank you. And Britt?
Hi, I'm Britt Ash, and I am also on the Bike and Pedestrian Committee.
Wonderful. And Kevin?
Yes, I'm Kevin Claggett. I'm a Canby resident and am involved in the bicycle community in Canby.
Great, thank you. And yeah, if everybody on Zoom can just mute unless there's a question. We don't have the chat part up, so if you have a question or would like to interject at some point, feel free to just unmute and speak as opposed to raising your hand or using the chat. And then we just went through introductions. So Sarah and Chris, if you guys want to introduce yourselves. Oh, here. Hi. So that they can pick up on you.
Hello, I'm Sarah Spoon. I'm on City Council.
I'm Chris Calkins. I'm on Planning Commission here in County.
And nobody else snuck in, correct? Okay. So one of the things, as you'll see on your agendas, is that we kind of wanted to talk about the history of what got us here.
And I think most of you have worked with somebody else in the past, Calvin, who used to work for the city. So it's me, I'm a long timer, I'll be here for the duration. But we asked Mindy Monacuco, who's the chair of the Bike and Pedestrian Committee, if she would kind of give that history, talk about the parametrics plan, those kinds of things. So Mindy, why don't you come on up?
Hi, I think most of you know me already. I'm Mindy Monacuco, like she said, Chair of Bike Ped Committee. And I thank you for being here very much. You guys, well, important part to have your input through this whole process. I'm a lifelong Canby resident. I grew up on Monacuco Farms down by the Canby Ferry, and along our fields are adjacent to the current logging road and path. And so I understand the importance of being able to have full access to your property and to your agricultural practices and to your property and all. So I want, this is why we thought it would be excellent to have National Park Service to help us figure this out in a way that will work. And because it's important that the integrity of your well-being and life with life's work. So anyway, as all of you know, in 2017, the Traverso section of the logging road was donated to the city of Canby by the Traverso family, according to Bob Traverso's wishes. Then nothing really happened. And for a few years, and so in 2019, we applied for a grant to at least figure out a management plan. And that's when the press picked it up and it got, out into the public domain that was public property. And that was unfortunate because there was no plan in place yet. So I apologize. I don't know that it's my place to apologize, but it was never an intention for problems to arise. So anyway, we just have now applied for the parametrics, helped us develop a plan for management of the Traverso section, and that with your input, it became evident that it needs a lot more planning. That is clear. So anyhow, we're glad you're here, and we hope to keep you at the table, or not hope to, you will be at the table. So glad you're here, and I'll hand off unless any more background that's needed. All righty. Yes.
I've reviewed that parametrics plan, and that happened substantially before 2017, based on the data on the plan that you have.
The parametrics plan?
Yes.
No,
No,
because I wasn't even on the bike ped.
no, that wasn't parametrics.
They
You know
might be
what?
using, they may have used some data that was prior or some maps or something.
I think you're referring to the 1994 plan,
Yes.
which,
One that was out on your website. And that's how I found the date.
I could shed some light because I have the document that was made in 2019, the master plan, and the 1994, thank you, plan is called the Malala River Pathway Plan. And so that is what the gentleman, I assume, is referring to, which I believe is just the acknowledgement that this stretch of road actually goes between Malala and clear up to north of town here. So
yeah,
if that's helpful.
Found some, as property owners, we found substantial errors in that.
Oh.
They had talked to us.
Okay,
I've lived there for 25 years,
Yeah.
never been approached by anyone.
fair enough.
So if you're.
who were you expected to be approached by?
They said the other property owner looked at giving access.
Oh, that was not you. That was not you. That was someone else who approached us, and they are since no longer property owners there. And so no worries. That was a snapshot in time. And so rest assured, that is not an access point. Thank you.
Well, and one of the things I was gonna say with plans of this nature, whether that is about developing, you know, a pathway or developing a downtown, we rely on older information, but things change as we move on, whether that is literally the property owners that change or someone providing, you know, saying you can have access, they could change their mind. So, you know, it's a hard thing because kind of, you know, what we print today might be out of date tomorrow or might have changed tomorrow. But that's why, and I know that there was some outreach in the past, that's why we wanted to engage the stakeholders again and have everybody come back together so we can start talking from today, you know, and then hopefully this is my true hope that you all remain property owners and stakeholders in this project, and we all work together for years to come. But that is why some of that might seem, you know, incorrect. It's because, you know, 1994, that plan was done at that time, and then, you know, to then update it. So I'm sorry that there was kind of incorrect information or the assumption that, you know, that it was this when it, or wasn't this when it was that. But our goal today is to kind of build from today and use that information, just like we're going to use the history that you guys all bring from, you know, 50 years of living there, Century Farms. I mean, that's amazing. So I guess in that regard, if you can bear with us a little bit, but we won't take just misinformation and you know, move forward with
That's
that.
what appeared to happen. That's the concern, is that if you're still using this plan with the misinformation,
Sure. Well, and
then you're under some wrong assumptions too.
right. And I was going to say, and just like when I introduced myself and I will say that this is not just to say something nice because it's on Zoom and we're in a big meeting. We can connect and get information, you know, or exchange contact information. I'd love to meet with anybody. So for the 1994 plan, if you're like, this specifically is wrong, I'd love to know that information. We'd love to know that information. And
There's a lot on the 1994 that is wrong and outdated.
yeah,
And so if it is on the website still,
yeah,
maybe we should take it down.
Sure.
We were just doing it in the interest of transparency.
Right.
But, you know,
but
if maybe we should consider
Right.
taking it down if it isn't already down. So we'll have to revisit that.
yeah. So afterward, I have cards up here. And you know, if you just call and ask for Jamie at the city, I think I'm the only one with that name. There's a James over at the police department. We don't want him showing up because that will be different, but we'll connect so that we can, you know, help to start that conversation on what's not right. Because I don't know, but you do, and you have more information. Yeah.
Also, if we're gonna start with misinformation, and then he was talking about the Montezuma zoning farm that adjoins that property. If they're talking about the Montezuma adjoining property that adjoins the proposed thing, I would like to know whether Montecukos own any property that adjoin the proposed addition to the bike path.
No. I was referring to the portion that is down by the Canby Ferry where
Correct.
the existing road.
Yes, from 13th
Yes,
down, the
yes.
Montecukos do not own any
It was
property
not-
down there, though.
Absolutely
That's
not.
all I wanted to say.
That, yeah, that was never my intention to say that, and I hope that was not.
Are there any questions about anything the city said in terms of the history or what we're doing here tonight?
Or I guess you could use this one and I can walk that if someone.
That'd be great.
Question. In regards to at the end of last year, we had almost all these people, not quite all of them, and the mayor and a city councilor, at least one, as well as Ms. Montecukos down at the gun club for a meeting very similar to this. And other than maybe this meeting, what came of all that? If anything.
I do believe that information did go back to Parametrics, who helped to make the plan that was finished in 2020. That information, you know, was no? Oh,
The meeting was after 2020.
my apologies. See, I'm new to this conversation, not new to the city. So, but. If you wanna
Sure.
answer that, or-
Yeah, no,
and
sure.
I think it was also good
Yeah.
stakeholder engagement.
Yeah, total stakeholder engagement. The parametrics had finished their plan, and so their contract was up with us. We did not have our person, and pretty much this is what has transpired from that meeting, because now this is an official city meeting and all that. You guys are all here and on record. And we have the National Park Service assistance in, and we have this city administrator and everything. We have the people who count now, because I don't count. You guys count, and the city staff counts. So this is that opportunity. So.
And one thing that we're going to do from this meeting, if you've signed in and we have your mailing address, ideally, is there a email option for them? We'll email you the notes, and we'll talk about this at the end of the meeting, but we'll email you the notes so that you can see your comments in there. And if we got something wrong, you can email back, you can change the record. So you'll be able to track that and see that your comments have been made and that the city and others are listening.
And I was gonna say also, that meeting, I was wrong about the parametrics plan, but it does help to inform the efforts that we do. So, think of it as a kickoff to the kickoff, a little pre-function for the meeting today, but, it helps us, it helped, I think, the Bike and Ped Committee to be able to report back to city staff. It helped us to engage better or differently with the National Park Service. I think that might have been already underway, so I'm not going to say that it helped us to engage with them, but it helped to kind of set the meeting for now. And like how you had said, there were, maybe it was a smaller group. I am heartened. Can you be heartened? I know you can be disheartened, but I'm excited at the fact that you noted also that there's more people here tonight, because that gives us an opportunity as city staff, the National Park Service, our Bike and Ped, our city councilors, to be able to engage with a larger group of property owners. And it's not just that you're property owners, you're stakeholders in this effort. Clearly you care obviously about your property. You guys care about Canby. And I'll take any opportunity to get to meet a group of people that care about Canby. So I thank you for choosing to come into this meeting, because you could feel like, well, we already did this, but it's a little bit more structured with the National Park Service here. And I think that that was probably the first of hopefully many. And I am.
Jamie?
Yes.
May I step in just for a second? I think really the purpose of this next step was for the city to develop a management plan and work with the local and adjacent property owners. And that was where we are right now. And I think that should be the focus, and work out some of the relationships that need to be done between the city, because it's kind of a unique spot. The city owns property outside the city. And so I think the landowners need to kind of explain what they need from the city, and the city needs to explain what they need from them, and work some type of relationship. And I think that's where these meetings are going. Thank you very much, Jamie.
Thanks, Bruce.
So I'm trying to understand, there is going to be a trail? Is that correct? Okay, because what I hear you saying, it sounds like there's going to be a trail. There's a trail project. So we're here to do what?
And the plan, and I believe, and I'm looking at Joe on this one, not to put you in the hot seat, but I guess that's why you're here, right? But because I do believe that wasn't there some language, or the thought was when the donation was received from the city, that it was always going to be, sorry to.
While he's forming his thoughts.
Yeah.
Say
Thank you.
What you're here for tonight is to talk about the section from 13th to the washout bridge and what are the concerns, particularly from those landowners that own land or live in that section, and how, if a trail is developed, how that trail can work best for you. So if there are farming concerns, I want to hear about it. When you spray, how we could potentially make this work, all of that. I've been doing this job for 22 years. I used to have hair on my head. I love this job. I understand the importance to make it work as best possible for landowners. That's why I really wanted to make sure that this meeting happened tonight, even though there has been past meetings, because I haven't heard any of those discussions. And if I'm going to give my best guidance to the city, I need to hear what you all have to say, and we need to record it and get it down so that everyone hears it, sees it, so that whoever in the city or bike ped or new landowners come in, there's a track record. So that's what we're here for tonight. I really want to focus on the landowners that live in that section. I also want to hear from people who don't, but I think we should give deference to those people who live in that section because we only have a certain amount of time. I am going to give you, if you can write down, and we'll put it in the notes. I'm going to give you my email right now. It's Dan, just like my name, D-A-N, then an underscore line, Miller, M-I-L-L-E-R, at NPS, like National Park Service, .gov, G-O-V. Dan underscore Miller at NPS.gov. You can email me if you want to have a conversation. If you don't feel comfortable speaking tonight, or you don't get the time tonight, you can email me. You can write up whatever you want to do, write up, and I will share it with the city unless you tell me that I can't share it with the city. Otherwise, I will. And if you want to just have a conversation, because you don't like typing emails, I don't like reading super long emails, although I'm happy to. I'm happy to talk one-on-one. I'll give you my cell and we can talk one-on-one and I can take notes. So if you don't get a chance to talk tonight, or you just don't feel comfortable, it's a big crew, please just hit me up and I will get back to you. You were just talking about how I'm talking too much.
All right. I want to do a little cut the chase. Like,
Yeah.
yes, we all have only so much time. So here's the thing. One, like, we're all sitting here going, okay, at what point or how much are we just gonna be bulldozed? Okay. And what I mean by that is when we're asking about, okay, what happened from the last meeting? Nothing. I mean, oh, well, we're having this, something happened in between. What happened in between? The whole idea of not continuing past the washed out bridge, that's new information. So is that, okay, couple things, like what's set in stone? Is it set in stone that it absolutely will not go past that bridge? Or not? Like what?
I'm not saying that. My only goal here tonight is to talk and work on the section.
Am I the only one wanting to kind of like have an idea here about like, yeah, like the lady said, so this is happening. I mean, you know, yes, right, we're heated. This affects our lives, you know.
If I'm giving you any negative energy, I apologize.
I want answers.
Yeah, I understand your
Right?
concern.
So-
Yeah, so just so you know, the city applied for my program to come in and work through the issues.
That's not my question, is it?
Okay, what's your question?
My question is it set? The people other than you, the people from Canby, is it set? Is it absolutely, we have decided that this project is not going to go past that bridge. That's not a viable situation. Or, because this is the first I've heard that, oh, actually, we're going to stop shy of what we talked about us stopping shy of.
Mr. Miller, if you don't mind, I can try to answer this and the prior question and take myself out of the hot seat at the same time, if you don't mind.
Win-win-win.
Yeah, I'm going to try. So you guys, perhaps you were aware that there was a grant and they wrote a development plan for this area. And so are you all at least aware of that? Okay.
Parametrics
Oh, yeah.
plan.
And so that plan was in phases. And so here's the city has an asset and it's in its park kind of inventory, but no decision has been made on it because we have a park master plan that's still being developed and we have budgetary concerns. And when you look at the plan that you all are aware of, it's in phases, and phase one happens to be between the gun club and that washed out bridge because that's the cheapest phase and it would be the first one you would have to do anyway. And so no decisions have been made as to the prioritization of our parks. And that Jim Davis back there, he wants to be a part of this too because he's on the Parks and Rec Committee. Council President Hensley will certainly have a say. Councilor Spoon will certainly have a say. And so we want to get input from everybody here about what the issues are. I heard Mr. Miller start to get into some of the stuff we would probably want to know more sooner than later is who uses pesticides, right? Because we want to be able to account for that. If this is ever going to occur, we kind of have to know that first. So part of the reason is this is information gathering for us as well, but we also want to know what your concerns are. We could probably talk with our police. I know we've talked with sheriffs a little bit about safety concerns and enforcement concerns and patrol concerns and stuff like that. But there has been very, very little, to answer your question, between this happening, besides the pandemic kind of shut us down on some of this stuff. And then when we tried to come up out of it, we've kind of acknowledged that we have this master plan that cost us $150,000 to have experts kind of take as much input from everybody in the community and see what our resources are and what our prioritizations are. And then it's ultimately the say of our city council using the advice of our Parks and Rec department. So I hope that doesn't sound hollow,
The
but
answer to my question is,
it's complicated.
it is, we're going to be affected as badly as we think. It's just going to take some time.
Well, it might be that.
Just ask her how many phases is after this first one.
Well, there's in the plan that we currently have that was made in early 2021. There are, I think, three or there's 2 phases and then future phases. So, I mean,
can you give us, what is that?
well, let me answer it this way. We started out with
What are those
a
phases? 'Cause it's been
1994.
really hard for us
Yeah.
to find this information out.
Okay, well, and I'm sorry, we can share that.
Like, as he was talking about Zoom meetings and things like that, not being able to hear what's going on.
Yeah.
When people have tried to like research.
Right.
So, yeah, so what are those phases?
Yeah, and one of the things I was gonna say is that also, this isn't a private document that we're hiding, but it sounds like it feels like that. It's not. I'm happy to send out, when we send out the notes, that can be at the top of the email is the link to the plan. It's on our website. And the reason I say the link instead of attaching it is a big plan and there's lots of pictures in it, so it's hard to email. But that is something that, I can send out even before the notes. I can send it out before I leave this evening. And I see you and then I see, yep.
So one.
A quick over, so what are they?
The first phase, as far as I understand, goes to the washed out bridge. The second phase, to help me out exactly.
My property runs from that washed out bridge almost all the way to Maxburg.
Yeah.
But it's a relatively short, so I'm trying to figure out how that's 4 phases and the last 3 are.
I think there's.
No, the second phase, if I'm reading this correctly on page 23, you could look it up later, and it doesn't lay it out too much. It basically says that the second phase would be to go clear to Maxburg once that bridge is safe, right? And but that's super. I will say this though, it's cost prohibitive right now for the city because bridges are not cheap and we don't want to bite off more than we could chew. And we have a master plan that we still need to see what it presents. And then our council has to make decisions based on what that presents. And so I know that sounds, I just don't, I'm not going to tell you I have answers because it isn't my decision, but also those are the steps that have to take place before our decision makers can actually make the decision.
At least slightly more information.
Okay.
Ever presented before, so.
Okay, well,
Think of yourselves just for a second,
That's good.
not as adjacent landowners, but you're the city or you're the general public. And you want to explore the idea of developing this trail. You develop it in phases because that's the way that you do things, right? You're not going to build the whole trail all at once. You're going to build the easiest section first, already done, exists, right? People can go out there. I'm not talking about phase one. There's a trail that people are walking right now, right? And they're using. Okay, the next phase is the one that we're talking about. It is the next easiest phase. It also is contiguous with the existing trail. And so that's why we're exploring. What I'm hoping that we can focus on tonight is what are the issues of those adjacent landowners that live in that area? Because one thing the parametrics plan, as far as when I read it, I didn't see anything about input or issues of those adjacent landowners.
We were never asked.
Right. I understand that. I'm not from.
Never had a chance to say anything.
I understand that. I totally understand that. Frustrated. It's why we're doing this meeting tonight. It's why I recommended that we have this meeting tonight. It's because there's no way to know what those issues are unless we don't start talking about them. And then the city and everyone else can make decisions about how or not how to move forward. Does that make sense? So I understand you're frustrated. I understand that. But the city is making the best effort to try to get your issues. So nothing has happened in terms of trail development. So now is the time to engage.
And then we had, I have a little cue going in my brain. I am seeing your hands. And I know that there's lots of engagement. That's good. One of the things while I walked the microphone, I didn't miss you, Mr. Carnegie. I'm coming. I just wanted to hold on to the microphone a little bit longer. I was just going to say that one of the things is, and I agree, if someone was talking about potentially even in 100 years building a trail outside of my house, I would have wanted to have input. If we think about that, which is what it's called, a development plan, sorry to have my back to you, it is how it would develop. That is in phases. This is about management and engagement. So it's how we bring people together. It's backwards. Yes, it doesn't feel good because we're talking about property that's property and family property and centrally and even new, but that's why we're all together today. So I'm going to relinquish the microphone.
I just had one quick question for the city attorney. You called it an asset as a 34-year business owner. I would call it more of a liability.
Yeah, I think that probably there's probably a lot of that in there. Yes.
So we're gonna go here and then here, and then Sarah, and then you. Yes.
Thank you. I just might be my own ignorance. I know when this was donated, I just want clarification because you hear rumors of different things. Clarification of why, when this property that's in Clackamas County was given to the city took ownership of this property. And if it was such a great idea, and Dan's a secondary question to this, that they took it to develop this, even to look into this, why wasn't the property given to Clackamas County when it was in Clackamas County? And have you ever had a city develop a park in a county that's outside of their city?
You want me to take that one first? Yes, I'm working with the city of Grants Pass right now. They bought an entire mountainside called Dollar Mountain, and they're developing a trail system and park on it. It's outside of city limits, but it is the best opportunity for those residents, and that's why they did it. So, and there's a lot of cases.
Just to kind of put a bow on that, if it serves the citizens of Canby, right? and it abuts us, it makes more sense than, I've heard in California where they extend the urban renewal, just like a giant flag clear out so they can build a zoo in the middle of nowhere. So at least this one seems to pass a sniff test as far as, right up next to the city and part of what we already consider our linear park, which is a well-used logging road trail, if that helps.
I'll just add a little bit to that too. And I've got some considerable background in this type of work, and it's not highly usual for a city to own a park asset out of its city limits, but it's also not unusual, as Dan said. But I think the question, this goes back, I'm trying to answer your question a little bit more thoroughly, and goes back to what Joe was saying a little bit ago, which is really the question is then, does the city want to put resources into this? We did accept this donation, and the whys and the hows of that, I don't know that I can give you the history on that, because that precedes my time with the city, and we could probably spend a good length of time talking about that. But the fact is, the city did accept the donation. The intent with that seemed to be to build this extension of the existing Malala Forest Road Trail that already exists through town. But this really gets to the question of, again, decision-making is, this is that kind of that point going forward of getting input from affected people and the community and partners and stakeholders to really decide how the city wants to spend its resources. So this is a part of that question. That's an excellent question, because it really gets to the idea of, is this something the city is going to spend probably considerable resources on? And the answers are still to be determined. And that's also trying to answer the earlier question from over here, that very direct question about, is this going to be built or not? That's part of what we're trying to figure out. And so, excellent question. And just understand, a lot of this still is very early, and we're still unfolding all that. And that's something that our decision makers will have to grapple with over time, is how that unfolds, because it is a rather interesting scenario to have something that goes outside the city limits, but does it serve the community, and how does it serve the community? But I would also say that at some point, part of this discussion is going to be, who else does the city partner with? Because this can't just be on the back of the city. Do we partner with some other agencies? Is there a nonprofit group that gets formed that helps to support this and pay for it, or something like that? So I think there's just lots more questions than answers yet, but this is why we're hearing from you all tonight, is to help us with those decisions.
Hi, I'm Matt Latanzi. I'm a Tree Frog Farm here at Ground Zero. The river runs through the center of our property, and I was thinking about the impact on the actual trail is not going to impact where we live, but I'm thinking about everybody who does live on that road. And we're avid bicyclists. We both cycle Oregon, and I've been cycling my whole life. And I grew up in Portland and rode my bike everywhere. In fact, when the Springwater Trail was completed and they finished it through Oaks Bottom, that area there was a really nice place to ride my bike before it was completed. I found that my bicycle experience after the completion of the trail began to deteriorate, and to the point where we couldn't ride our bikes on those trails anymore. They became dangerous, and they tried to fence off certain areas to make it to reduce liability. But the fact was that the attempt to make something nice for the public went bad. And I'm thinking that all of those people that live on that side, you've got to, I don't envy you at all, what you're up against. You got a devaluation of property that's, in the past, it would have been an asset to have a bicycle path, and it would have been nice, but it doesn't draw just bicyclists. Bicycle paths, now they draw an element that can be dangerous. And there's liability associated with that. The Molalla River is unique in that it has actually possibly two endangered. Well, they're endangered species in that it's a protected species of wild Chinook salmon, spring Chinook, and a steelhead run, a winter steelhead run, both wild. That's going to be a real trick with some of the agencies you're going to deal with to try and build a bridge in a spawning area of these fish. This is going to be a tough one.
So we got two options here tonight, and I apologize for interrupting.
That's all right.
We can spend the whole night tonight just talking general trail stuff, and we won't get anywhere, and we won't hear from the adjacent landowners that live on this section. And that's cool if you guys want to do it, and we need to do it to get you to where you feel like you've been heard. That's great. We can do that. Or we can spend a fair bit of tonight talking about the actual issues of those adjacent landowners that live on this section of trail. Because we're not, and I apologize, we're not talking right now about developing anything else other than this one section of trail.
What I was actually doing is I wanted to bring up some of the issues that you want to talk about. These are the things that you're going to be dealing with. And so I was bringing them up as if I were on your committee and say, okay, we got to deal with these things. These are things that everybody is probably aware of here. And you do have to, you think about these and they'll have to deal with them at one point. So yeah, I just brought up a few of those highlights that are real roadblocks to getting this thing done. The public should have access to these areas, but there are certain areas that are unique and special and corridors of wildlife that sometimes public shouldn't have that access because they are unique and they're rare. There's not a lot of rivers like the Molalla River that have fish like that, wild fish, 2 species at least. So it's delicate beyond the path. So yeah, I just wanted to bring a couple of, even though that your road or your proposed bicycle path does go through my property, or maybe not. It depends on how I don't know where you're really going to do it, that area. That would be a really good thing to talk about, where it's washed out when the storms do come through and it floods over there.
This is what I want to talk about.
This is right through my property.
Right.
It floods through my property, it hits that road, and it obviously washed it out. And that's exactly. Yep. So the river flows. This is, yes, that's right there. That's Neil and I'm here. So there's my line right there. And Neil's right here. And this is where it's washed out. It's there was a partition done, a measure 49 partition done on my property. And that's when I purchased the parent property. And it was surveyed meticulously. So there's some monuments there. I could show you. Go out there with you anytime. Show you those monuments there that mark that out specifically. And so I'm really curious about how you're going to get around that spot if you do want to take it further. And if you don't, if you can't take it further, if you can't figure out how to budget to build that bridge and get back the environmental impact that's going to have on the fish and all of that you're going to be dealing with. Whereas if you can't get by that bridge, then it's just a bicycle path to nowhere. I mean, it's what they can do right now anyway. Yeah, I can come out anytime.
Yeah.
I think
So that is a big issue.
Yeah.
The erosion that has happened in that section of trail, which is, help me out, a half mile, quarter mile before the bridge, if you're on the road. Half mile. I mean.
1,000 feet is gone.
Okay.
Gone.
Right. So that section there may, what are the issues and costs to be able to rebuild that. May or may not make it worth developing that short section. If you can't repair the bridge, you may want to stop it right there. So I would be happy to go out and walk with you and talk
You're still
about
a
it.
quarter mile from the bridge there. At that point where it stops, you're still approximately a quarter mile to the bridge.
Yeah, and
Right.
that's a very good point. I'm going to jump in here.
That's where Neil was
Because I want to point out that phase one only goes up to the washout of the road, not to the
I'm
bridge.
sorry.
So we're talking about, I mean, that's the washout and the bridge are going to be what takes the dollars. We're just,
Right.
I mean, and even before that, we have plenty of what it's going to, phase one's going to take a lot in and of itself.
So we do have, I know that you want to get to the meat and I think that we are, I have seen some hands and I have a little queue. Do you, so I have Sarah, oh, sorry.
Well, he's the railroad owner
Right.
and he's got, you guys are like on his property. So if he could get a chance. Anyway.
So, I don't know how you want
I'm
to
happy
go
to-
through the
yeah.
queue, just,
Mr. Samuels.
you want to go with, yeah, okay. Awesome. Let's give you the, I know the microphone, it's a little difficult, but it's just so that the folks at home.
That's fine. Okay, so I think my biggest thing is that from Highway 99 up to Sequoia Parkway, our railroad right-of-way touches the existing path. And I have brought up safety issues to the mayor. There is no fence between that path and our railroad tracks. There is a middle school on the south side of that path, and there are huge apartment complexes and a Fred Meyer on the north side of our tracks. All of those kids, I've seen between 12 and 15 middle school kids walking up our railroad tracks, putting things on the tracks, climbing up the embankment, putting shopping carts on the tracks. I have people climb through my train when I'm stopped, getting from the path to Fred Meyer. And if the city can't even manage their existing trail in the city limits by putting in a fence, which I've asked for multiple times, then how can you manage something that's that far out?
I'll get it back to you. I just was gonna say, I do have a little bit of an answer on some of that, which is just that the city is currently working on doing some work to our logging trail bridge as it goes over Highway 99. So obviously a different section than what we're talking about this evening. One of the things is that we are working to build access from the logging trail back down to Highway 99, and you're gonna get your fence. We're gonna put fencing up or a wall up or something, and now I'm looking at our public works director, so that we can help to deter people from taking the unsafe route and encourage them for taking the safer route. Doesn't solve all the world's problems at all, not pretending that it does, but just that we are putting some work into that. And then also, some beautification efforts along with safety. We just got approval to even start engaging on that process, but I will definitely get your contact information. And
As a railroad owner, do you have issues or concerns or ideas in terms of actual design of the trail if it were this next section to the washout was built?
Yeah, but that would take long. I remember, I've been running trains out there for 30 years, and I remember when Alicia Park was open, and it was an absolute crap show out there, honestly. And it's been ever since they closed the park and there's no real access to it. It's been quiet, it's been nice, it's out in the country, and all you see is.
But your railroad is on the other side of landowners, right? Like
Our railroad goes right through the middle of everything.
on this section of trail that we're talking about, from here.
The section from 13th to where you're talking about the washout is, the washout, I can throw a rock over the embankment from our railroad tracks.
So on both ends, like just both ends of the trail, it's of this section, it's close to the railroad. And those are the,
Our railroad, yeah, from 13th up to basically where that washout is, our railroad is not very close to that section. But by completing it to the washout, you bring people up to where our right of way is. And then next thing you know.
what can the city do to make sure on this end here that people aren't going to?
Not build it.
Okay.
Honestly,
Other than not build.
nothing. If you allow people to get up into that area, they're going to explore. It doesn't matter if there's a fence or not. Our railroad in Portland, he was talking about the Springwater Trail. Our railroad in Portland runs along the Springwater Trail from OMSI all the way through Selwood to 17th. And we have 10 sections of our fence that have been cut open so that the homeless and other people can wander back and forth. Anytime you have a bike path and it ends somewhere out there, there's going to be people exploring, and there's no way you're going to keep people off your property. I mean, we have people poaching deer out there as it is now. I find guts laying along the railroad tracks, people down fishing, duck hunting in the river from our railroad tracks. I mean, I couldn't even imagine what it would be like if there was an actual path that went out there.
Yes, yes. I'll go back to the queue. So I had Sarah, then I had Gary Feist, then I had this gentleman whose name I don't know off the top of my head yet. What? Neil? Richard. Okay.
I'm hoping someone from the gun club raises their hands.
I talked early, but don't worry, I have notes.
Thanks. Just a clarifying question. I know there's a lot of, it's like Jamie said, a little bit difficult because it feels like we're going backwards or kind of out of order. So just to help me and maybe others, we're on the section you're talking about. The feedback that you're looking for, are you looking for feedback on the parametrics plan and what they proposed where we didn't have any feedback or input? Or are you talking about, do you want feedback from us on if there is a trail, what does that trail look like? Because that looks very different. I think that what we saw in the plan was there's some really significant things that seem insurmountable and extremely costly and very difficult for, I don't know how that would work.
What I'd like to focus on is if there was a trail in this section from the washout to 13, what you'd like to see, what sort of design mitigation measures could be made to make it work better for you as the landowner. That's like the first, that's like the ideal. Now you can shake your head and say like, no, 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 but the city is going to go through a planning process, right? And they're going to decide one way or the other. And yes, you're adjacent landowners, and yes, you have a say. And that's why I want to have this meeting now, early on. But it's like when a city has a park, right? Like they have a land and they want to develop a park. The adjacent landowners are going to have feelings about that park, but then the rest of the city has, in terms of all of the residents who are a part of the city, they also have feelings and ideas about.
So is the parametrics plan like setting that to the side and we're
No,
starting
it's-
fresh,
no,
or
it's
we
not-
are, that's
It's not
the
necessarily,
plan?
it's not like it's dead, but what I really am concerned about is what are your issues about this section of trail through your land and how the city could design it to make it work best for you.
Okay, that's helpful.
And I mean, obviously realistic, like we want to elevate it 50 feet off the ground, that's not feasible.
Tunnel would be good.
So what Mitch is offering is that he has feedback from Is it just from you guys or from you? But so, well, I was gonna say, yeah, so I was gonna say, maybe we can connect, or, I mean, or you can say it, I'll just put you in the queue just so that, yeah, and, or if you also wanna hit like your top 5, and then not 5 favorites, but the ones that maybe come to the first, I mean, I see kids, that's always an important one.
The most
But
important.
then you can either give that sheet to me, or you can email it to me, yes, but I'll come back.
Thanks. I just had one quick question. This lady over here wanted to know if this first section is for sure. Is it for sure?
Nothing is ever for sure. I mean, the city council has to decide what they want to do, how they're going to do it.
But they are gonna do it then.
And
That's what a lot of people are wondering.
And I'm sorry that this answer doesn't have such definitive sort of structure to it. There has to be, our master plan has to be, our parks master plan, which is now in its final phases, has to be accepted by the city council. That in and of itself has in it a prioritization based on a lot of the feedback that they got from the community about what they think we should be spending our limited resources on. And then we have to devise up kind of not only the prioritization, or I should say that the council does, but we work with our Parks and Rec advisory board and our city council and try to figure out what's real. And, looking at some of these phases, just the mere barely use it looks like it could be between 300 and 500,000, to barely just get what we're talking about going. And that is a big significant choice that may or may not be prioritized, for one, in the plan, and for two, by the council at this time. So the council, I believe that a lot of the feedback that was being gotten by the kind of the community at large is that trail systems are favorable for folks and people like those. Now, whether or not, if there's so many problems or so much cost to this one, maybe there's other ones that get made first. So there's so many more maybes, but this is truly one that on the city side right now, it gets used a lot. And so I think there probably is that many people who use it who wouldn't mind going a little bit further. But that's just me, and I'm not the decision maker. Hopefully that answers it a little bit more.
So you don't really know yet.
Well, so if I were the property owner, I would say, okay, what's signage going to look like? What are you going to fence off stuff? What are the known risks? How often is it going to be patrolled? Are you going to have call boxes? That maybe if there's an emergency, most people have cell phones now, but maybe, which agency is going to respond? Is it going to be the sheriffs? Is it going to be the police? I would start to ask the nuts and bolts questions, because I would want to know, even though we haven't decided, or I should say the city council hasn't decided, whether or not to actually make this a priority today or 10 years from now. But the stuff that we would love to hear from you guys is you're the boots on the ground. You guys actually know what's out there. And so we should be coming to you. I'm sorry we didn't come to you sooner, but we may still be years away.
How many of you in this section from the washout to 13 that are landowners, how many of you use currently right now, utilize this road for your property? To act like to drive to your home or your place of work? How many of you? Okay, so what are you concerned about?
I'm concerned, how long has the city owned this trail? How many years?
Since 2017?
Was it December of 2017? Yeah.
Okay, so how much money have you allocated to maintain that trail as is right now? No, Mindy, It is a trail right now. People are walking up and down it. They're riding bikes. And that is it's a mess. And there is no, let me speak. Okay? There is garbage everywhere. Okay? I've never seen anyone pick it up except myself. Okay? People are speeding down that road. It is.
What do you mean
it's
speeding? On their
speeding.
bikes, on their cars?
On their cars and vehicles.
Right, so right now that gate is wide open, right?
Absolutely.
So
There's
No
no
gate.
speed. There's nobody
So what-
patrolling it.
what would you like to see? Would you like to see
Well-
a gate there
No.
that you as owners can open, like with an automatic opener or something?
I don't know that that's necessary, but how come the city isn't patrolling it at all? How come they're not?
You understand, I'm gonna interrupt. for
Yeah, go
a
ahead.
second. Understand that from 13 down to the gun club, that is access to properties as well as a trail. And that was written into part of the donation, which they got a very large tax deduction for, one transparency's sake. So you have cars going up and down that portion, and you will always have cars going up and down that portion to where property owner access to homes ends.
So how do we make this work?
Well, I'm asking right now, what are you doing? This is not new, that there's traffic there. There are people littering there. There's potholes. So people are driving on the wrong side of the road at fast speed. I have to jump off that road because I'm afraid of how fast people are driving when I'm walking my dog. I've almost been hit several times.
So
And this is city property. And no one's patrolling it. I can't patrol it. There's no speed signs up. So I don't trust you all to do a good job. That's just what it's at. That's what
I can speak for the gun club. I've been a 42-year member of the gun club. My wife's family owned all the property around there, both sides of the road down to Mitch's house for about 70 years or something. But as a gun club, we went to the city when the city got it and we asked the city, can we patch the road? And they said, no, we cannot. So we tried to do that. As a gun club, we were going to take care of that because there's some major holes on the right side of the road going down there. And then just a little brief history, I guess you haven't been to any of the other meetings. Jerry Geiger, police chief of Canby in 1978, interim police chief. He was here for 30 some years. Asked him about it and he said, no, it's a bad idea. He goes, we can't patrol it. The county's not going to patrol it. It's city property. The county is not going to patrol it. The city will have to patrol it. The city will not patrol it, or they will try to, but it won't happen. Mitch lives down there. He's had homeless people on his property. We've had on the gun club, we've had homeless people on our property. We've had to kick off. And so they, and just, you haven't heard half of the stuff that's gone on. My wife, we used to hunt down there for years. My wife ran into a gal that, $20 is $20 down there with a guy down there doing drugs and just all kinds of bizarre stuff. People have had people with bikes going, hey, this is a bike trail. We can ride out here now. No, you're on private property. We've had people behind our house. We live right on the hill above the gun club. And we've had people ride our bikes in behind our house and they're like, well, it's part of the bike trail, isn't it? And we're like, no, you're on the backside of an active shooting range. You should not be down here. We have it all marked. We have signs. As a gun club, we put up signs probably, 5-6 years ago? We signage the whole property. Doesn't matter. Signage does not work.
So the gun club, I'm a gun club member. Let's just hypothetically say.
We like that about you.
Am I driving this road to access the gun club?
Yeah.
Okay, how many members do you have?
700.
700.
Roughly.
And you shoot actively Tuesday, Thursday?
It's open to the public Tuesday and Thursday, but we shoot 7 days a week, even on Sunday.
And which direction in terms of orientation? You're not shooting towards.
Our farthest east trout range is about 50 yards from the road.
About 50 yards from the road.
We all shoot. Everybody, they're
On our property.
on our property. We're all-
Let's face it, there's gunfire.
Oh, every day.
So are,
To that trail.
so do you, like, people are using that road now? right? They're hiking it and they're driving.
Yeah,
Are you concerned at all as the gun club? about
absolutely.
People on that road?
Absolutely. It's a private club. So we've already had several people come into our club. It's a private club. We invite the public in on Tuesday and Thursday to come hang out with us. But it's a private club and they come in our driveway and act like they own the joint because they accessed it through city property. And while I have the microphone, I'll just hit my two questions here. First one is, I believe Greg Parker brought it up in a Park and Rec Committee meeting last month about a survey that was sent out some time ago. I don't really have the information from it, but he said there was 3 top answers. The first one being current park maintenance was a priority of the citizens of Canby. And the second one was more parks or trails. And I don't remember what the third was. So first priority being the current maintenance of parks within the city, leaves me to believe that the park that's built or the trail that's built on this logging road will not be maintained either if they can't maintain the ones in the city. Second issue is that's zone EFU land outside of city limits, and that road is in fact an easement. I have just as much ability to develop it as you do if you develop it, because I have an easement on the title deed as the gun club to use that road in the same fashion that you do. So should this go forward, I might just submit a development plan for my own hunting trail.
So those people that are accessing your land or property on this road, when I suggested a gate, you all balked, right? But the road is open. And one of your concerns is there's lots of people that are going down this road. They're not trail users. They're just driving down the road for whatever reason.
Well, driving is one thing. Everybody knows car parks, they know they're there, but last summer, I had 2 gentlemen come in on a mini bike, camped and were firing off 22. Now, that was just right, that just the other side of that gulch, the dry gulch, right? And they camped there. And so that's kind of like, if you're thinking people on bikes or little mini bikes or whatever, they'll come through. You know, how do you stop? On your property, how do you stop them coming into the, because they're gonna wanna go to that river and do what they did. Now, not everybody's out there going to shoot, but they'll wanna get to the river, access it. Now, that's gonna be a problem. I mean, how you gotta deal with that?
The point is, we already have these problems and it's not, here, let's make this really easy for everybody to get in there. We already have to police things. We already have homeless people coming stealing stuff off of our property. We already have prostitution at the end of Elijah Road that we've had to police out. Here's what I heard you saying is you're saying, okay, tell us what you want us to do to, make this a happy trail for everybody. And that's not it. You're making, if this trail goes through, I don't care what you say, it's gonna make my life more hell. So here, because I've already had to police things, we're in Clackamas County, you make a phone call, we don't have somebody there in 5 minutes. And as it's already been said, yeah, the reality is this isn't, Canby police aren't gonna be coming out to my call. It's the one Clackamas County guy that's on, right? That's just reality, okay? So you're saying, hey, we're trying to figure out how to open this and be like, hey, public.
Well, it's already
you
open, right?
need to be-
Like it's a city.
No, we're gonna fix this all up to bring you all in here. And we're saying, don't ask us, how can we make this happy trail? It's like, you tell us how this isn't gonna be horrible. You tell us how you're gonna plan to not make this a spring water corridor, because it will be a spring water corridor. How do we stay safe? Right? Like, it's already not good. That's the point. It's already not good. And this plan is going to make things worse. So how are you gonna make it? I don't care about the kids, like the parents with their kid with the stroller biking down. Like, that's not a problem.
Right.
But hello, the spring water corridor, like, that's what you're planning to do here.
We have people driving onto our property, saying we have the right to go to the river.
Yeah.
But you're on my property,
To get.
driving around my barns, my equipment to get onto that road, and you're on private property.
And they're
It belongs to
accessing.
the city, I have the right to go to the river. Yeah, but you have to cross my property, somebody else's property to get back on, even if they got onto the roadway from Maxford, which is impossible unless they want to get cut up by a bunch of blackberries. By the time they get down to the river, they've got to cross on her property to actually get on the river. We have people driving on our property all the time. I don't like fences. I want the animals that live here before we do to get through. I hate fences. But I hate more people parking on the roadway. There's one little turnout that the phone company has. They'll park there, they throw their trash down, they cross my property. I have the right to get on this road and go to the river. No, you don't. You're on my property. No, I don't care. And that's what we're dealing with now. And that's on the other side of the river from where you're talking about. And we've been dealing with that for a long time. So I don't see how we're having this problem over there. It's worse on that side.
Well, there is no river access until phase 3 is completed. Correct. No river access. Anywhere. Phases 1, 2, until you get to phase 3, when you get to actually where the Molalla River is itself, the bridge that's kind of standing by itself in the middle with no approach on either side. There's no river access until you get to phase 3.
So
But yet that's proposed in the plan with your river access.
And right now, they go on your website, they see that you own it, now they can go down. That's one of the problems, is that it's owned by the city. I can go there. Problem is, you have to go across private property to get there. So the sooner you take that down, if you would, and say, hey, you cannot go across private property to get on this road. You know, I don't know if it'll help because they're probably college students who can't read, but, you know.
So signage on the existing corridor, you want to see signage for the city to put it up, say, you know?
We have signs. We have no signs up now.
Down to the end of my property right now. We've had homeless people down there. My son-in-law has to be a sheriff. When I see him down there, I call him up and say, hey, will you come down and get rid of these guys? And they do. But after we had poachers out there, that's the deer right on the side of the road. The road from the gun club down to my property, which is at the end where it washes out. There's a tree that fell down there. I leave it there. I'm about ready to move it and let them dry down there so they can go over the 13, 15 foot. And that road is not good. It's this gravel road from the gun club all the way down there. And the property owners that actually live on that part of the road, there's 5 of us. We maintain it the best we can.
Do you get a lot of vehicular traffic down there that is not landowners? So I'm just curious, like, you all don't seem very concerned about like how to limit access on that road.
Well, I'll say there's no room on the width or cars and a bike trail. There's just, you've got the river, you've got drop-offs. Have you walked that part?
No, I haven't.
You need to. You really need to.
Nick would be a great example. Nick Gibbs would be a great example. He just bought a property down there 2 years ago. Pretty peaceful when you first moved down there, probably. First week. But since this plan has went into effect, or the notion has went out there, I bet Nick's traffic has increased tenfold down there.
And he is in the queue to speak. And I will circle back. You'll ask a question. So that we can just, I want to also make sure that the people who, we haven't heard from yet are able to go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it's hard to know
even where to start on this. I've heard a lot of words tonight that, I heard a guy years ago talk about words are pretty meaningless. It's the meaning you pour into those words that matters. And I've heard a lot of words tonight, like engagement. I have property on both sides. My property goes clear back to the river. This is the very first time I've gotten any communication about this. You've owned this property since 2017, 5 years to talk to me. You think people that own property on both sides, on any side, but especially on both sides, you might want to talk to them early on. You've made some statements about, well, you don't seem concerned about limiting access to the road. No, I don't think that's it. It doesn't matter what you do to try to limit the access. People are going to find their way down there. Tim, you said you couldn't imagine what it'd be like with it down there. I can imagine. I've lived there my whole life. My dad took out a VA loan in '69 and he cut down 5 trees up in Oregon City and had them milled. You couldn't do that today. You get in trouble. And for him to have a house and raised 8 kids. I've lived there my whole life. And I've seen what it was like back then. The best thing that ever happened to my family, to that farm, was when Crown Zellerback tore out the road. My brothers used to make money. They'd go down and they'd take their tractor down there and they'd pull idiots off the tracks who got stuck trying to drive down the railroad tracks, and they'd make $10. And they'd make $20 if a train was coming. There was a guy that got his arm shot off with a shotgun when I was a kid down at the bridge. People weren't supposed to go down there unless you were a property owner. That didn't seem to stop people in the 1970s. I don't see how human nature has improved a whole lot in the last 50 years. If you want to look what's going on in this nation, if you want to look at what's going on in Ukraine, these are human nature issues. You're asking about how do we resolve these issues. Unless you somehow plan to sprinkle some sort of magic fairy dust and fix people's desires, which are naturally selfish, and you could point that finger back at us and say we're being selfish and we don't want to share. I don't think you're considering it from our point of view. This is our little piece of heaven. We do. And this nation was set up not just to serve the interests of the majority, but to protect the basic rights of the minority. Maybe we're the minority here, but our rights need to be protected. We deserve that. When I was a kid, there was a guy in a Jeep trying to get down Lily Lane saying, I can go back to the bridge. He tried to run my dad over. As a kid, I got to hear the sheriff explain to my dad how if he just talked about claiming self-defense, he could shoot the guy. I was 5 or 6 years old. You're going to fix that? I'd like to know how in the world you're going to fix human nature, because human nature is depraved. And you're not going to fix it. I'll probably have more to say, but
I will be here to listen. I'm really happy when you held up that postcard that you were saying it was good engagement, even though we could do better, because my name was on that one. So I'm glad, but there'll be more of it. Absolutely. And there'll be more of it. And that's, my contact information. You had the next one?
Just real quick, you've asked what you can do to make this better. And I think a lot of people here, you've heard right now, the city of Canby is not standing up and being a good neighbor at all. Yet they want to take something. And if I remember part of your paperwork as well, it appears as if you're going to turn it over the trail to trust for public lands. You won't even own it. You'll turn it over to the trust. And there's a clause within your agreement with Taro that you wouldn't sell it for 3 years. So the door is open to turn it over.
I seriously doubt the Trust for Public Lands interested in this trail.
I know, but that's, again, this is the information that's out on the Canby website. That's how I found it. Likewise, Canby put out 3 estimates. One was like $5 million, if I remember right. One was about 12 or 15, and one was $50 million as far as costs. And it was best case scenario to worst case scenario. It's on your website. I imagine that the $50 million is to solve the problems with the washout and get the bridge back functioning. Again, it's on your website. But what we've heard is Canby's not even being a good neighbor already. You can't get our pothole fixed. Yet this is what they want to put in their master plan. I'm sorry, I don't believe them. Just pure and simple.
So there will be a time, whether this trail gets developed or not, right? Things are happening. And so you're talking about like what you want this to see the city do, right? These are things that we want to hear, right? Because even if this trail doesn't get developed, they own that section of road. People are going on it. How do we make it better? You can say, oh, you can't make it better, and that's fine. But there are things that you can do, right, to make things better than what they are now. And so I'd like to hear some of those, particularly of the people who live in this section.
And Mitch, who lives in that section, has some bulleted feedback, and then further we'll also engage with myself and you, Tim.
So I don't have the solution, what's going to make this perfect, but I can tell you the issues as a landowner at the beginning of where you want to start. So it's going to impact my property right at the beginning of whatever you start. So first off, I have kids, 4 kids, first grade, 4th grade, 7th grade, freshman in high school. I've had to put gates up on my driveway because somehow my driveway now is coded through the Google Maps or whatever the mapping software is as a public road. So I have delivery vehicles coming up and down my driveway. I have random cars cutting from Malino Road to the logging road to get down there. My son, we were out trimming sheep hooves and working livestock. And I told him, run over to the other barn and grab some. He goes to go out the door and he almost gets run over by a bicyclist in my driveway who proceeded to yell at him. That's not right on my private property. By the time he came back in, he's scared. He's like, Dad, this guy's yelling at me. And by the time I could get out of the barn, the guy's at the other end of my driveway and on foot, I'm not going to catch him. How do we fix that? So that's one issue. I've almost had my dog hit in my driveway between the logging road and Malino Road as cars are trying to go through. I raise livestock. Under ORS, I could shoot people's dogs if they come on my property. I've had dogs inside my barn, cornering the sheep in the barn. I've had people cutting my fences along the logging road. I've had people steal my traps. I trap coyotes actively along the logging road because they come under my fences, kill my lambs. How are you going to fix the people coming through stealing my traps, which is a federal crime to steal somebody's traps? Again, back to the previous gentleman's comments, human nature is not great. People seem to think if they go down there, boy, this is free reign. I can go do whatever I want down here. It's like a park. I've had people, my neighbor called me one day. He goes, hey, Mitch, who's got a fire going on in your place? It's like, I don't know. I go down there. There's 2 vehicles parked. They parked on one side, crossed the creek with one of the vehicles, built a campfire, set up a tent. I go down there at 6 in the morning, they got a fire going. It's like, it's gonna be 100 degrees that day. I said, hey, what are you doing? Well, we're just camping. We've never been to Malala. I'm like, well, you're a long ways from Malala and you're on private property. Well, it is posted. And so these people, they come on, they think, well, it's river access. We can come in here. I'm like, that river, if you get in at public access, you could float through there, but you cannot go from this road to that without crossing my private property. I have a bullet hole in the back of my barn from somebody shooting up and down the river corridor, not from the gun club. It's going towards the gun club from up the river. The list of issues we have is long and lengthy. Parking, there is no parking on the logging road from 13th clear to the end of the road. There is nowhere for cars to park, for people walking up and down that road to park. My property gets used as a restroom frequently by people going up and down through there because there is no facilities. I don't care for that. I get people parking, blocking my driveway. They've dumped trailer loads of dirt and rubbish in my driveway because it's a good place to go get rid of stuff. Well, no, that's my private property. I'm out there routinely trying to maintain that road. When the ice storm happened, called Nick up. I'm like, hey, Nick, how you guys doing? Oh, no, we'll be good. I'm like, no, we'll just come down there. We took 9 trees off the road, my 4 kids and I. Cut them off, cleared the road, made sure all the local people could get in and out. Numerous times, trees fall down. Nobody from the city comes to take it. We've always just done that. When the road needs graded, whatever, that's us doing it. You know, these are the issues, you know, we're not going to maintain it if it's opened up as a public trail. I have property on both sides of the road. I cross it with my heavy equipment for agricultural purposes because we use it as part of our farm. If you pave it and whatever, oh, okay, I have a track hose that I go back and forth with. I have a dozer because I have to clear areas down in the lower part of my property. So there's a lot of concerns that are going to need to be addressed. Another one is the. Correct. And on both sides of the road, it literally drops off. There's in many places. Just to widen the road, you'd have to extend into wetlands. I mean, those are some of the issues. And flooding, from when it floods bad, from my place, which I'm really the first property from where the old gate was by the gun club, from my place clear down the path for the next 1.5 miles is underwater. You can't get to it when it's flooded. People flock down there to look at the water and the flooding. Well, it's not safe. There's been numerous river rescues. There's people trying to put in to get river access. Numerous times we've been down at the river on our private property and people are like walking down the river with their raft that's popped because there's only 6 inches of water in the Mohalla River. They're like, where's the closest access? I'm like, we got 4 miles that way or 3 miles this way. Well, there's nothing in between. No, there is not. And so the parametric study, a few of the 40 some odd stakeholders listed in it, over, I think it was 29 or 26 of them were not even from the Canby community. Metro Bike Club of Portland. And so when those studies went in for the parametric study, a lot of that input was from these other groups.
That was not parametric stakeholders, I don't believe, but that was a stakeholder list that was made years ago.
It was in with the parametric stuff, where I saw it in the discussions. So, but where my issue comes, this group was left out of that whole conversation. Where our contact, hold on a second, Mindy, where our contact first started, it was opening week of deer hunting season, and I go out my driveway because I was checking on livestock. I'm like, why are all those people over there in orange vests and yellow vests? Well, I have poaching issues that have gone on my property from the logging road. One shooting towards my house and one shooting back towards the river. And so I go over there like, oh, well, we're just doing a walk. We're doing a study. That was when the parametrics people were out there doing the study. They had there was not been any context. So it's very hard for this group to just say, hey, we got a great solution how this is going to be sunshine and roses, when really there's been no engagement. And we do have a serious list of issues, safety concerns, private property concerns, lack of parking concerns. There's going to be financial concerns with the cost of building through wetlands. Who's going to, if with the proposed designs they had, it shows it taking land on my side. Are they going to pay me for my property? There's a lot of questions we still have before we ever get to
land.
Well, I'm just with
Way to make it right now.
Right.
to get the width.
So my understanding is this road corridor is owned by the city, right? You all may have easements on it to use it, but the corridor is now owned by the city, and that includes the right for the general public to access that road, not necessarily by automobile, but in however the city deems, right? Or am I wrong?
Correct.
I could give you an answer, which currently we have a sign up that says no trespassing, right, at the end, on the other side of the gun club. Am I correct in that? Okay. Just because it's city owned doesn't necessarily mean it's open to the public And currently, we've tried to not have just a free-for-all of public people going in there. That's why we've left that
Right,
sign
but
up.
I mean, I asked you a while ago, and I'm asking again,
Mhm.
is on the deed to that road, is it open to the general public?
There is no deed for that road. It is an easement. If you look at Plaquemines County maps for properties, there is not a tax lot associated with this road.
Yeah, okay, so,
But there
Right, but
is a deed,
easements-
though. I could make you a copy if you want.
but also easements allow for one of two things. Either just access for the owners and or contractors of those owners, or it allows for access for the general public. So like the BLM or the Forest Service, when they're negotiating with Crown Zellerbach or whoever, when they share roads, that road easement specifically says whether the general public can go on it or not.
So when it was first done, it was a working road to get logs from the Malala foothills and out in the woods to the Willamette River. It's a private road set up for that purpose.
Right.
It has always been in private ownership up until December of 2017.
Right.
So I don't know for sure, but I do not believe it was ever really set up as a park, a trail, any of that. It went through public or private property. So property owners were given easement to use that property for ingress, egress. It was never designed for anything other than to get off-road trucks that were oversized, heavy haul from the woods to the river. That's what it was designed as.
Right, so the question is does that road, does the deed, the easement allow access for the public? And that's,
Well, the deed and ownership is for any and all uses to the city. And it was given to us with the notion of it becoming a linear park, a trail.
right, so legally, there's access.
Proposed, and here's the deal, I'm not making that decision and it's not even being currently made, but one of the things, so we were sitting here and had our sidebar, Mr. Archer and I, about some of these issues sound like longstanding, even longer than December 2017, right? As far as like people's lack of respect for private property. That boils my blood. I'm a prosecutor at heart. I've been a prosecutor for 15 years of my life. I don't like to see people's private property being trespassed on. I really don't. I'm sorry that we live in a situation, I think, where people are becoming less responsible and less respectful of other people's property. I think of this sometimes just personally. I think about where the logging road cuts near a whole bunch of properties between the country club and then clear down between the country club and Fred Meyer, right? And I don't hear necessarily the same amount of issues that I'm hearing from you guys. And part of that sometimes is because, and don't throw rocks at me or tomatoes yet, but sometimes when you give access to law-abiding people, because it sounds like currently anybody who's willing to go down there is pretty lawless. And so I think sometimes, and this is just something to think about, but I think when you allow law-abiding people to also show up, there's some bit of correcting of behaviors. And I don't have a crystal ball that's really going to tell me who's still going to violate and who's going to do what.
Springwater Trail is your crystal ball.
No, and I that is true. That exists, and I think it's a travesty of what's happened in the Springwater Trail. So, and nobody wants to. No, certainly we wouldn't want that as an amenity for the people of the city of Canby or for adjacent landowners. So that would never be our aim or our goal, right? So I think part of this is Mr. Miller's trying to be helpful. We might be better neighbors starting out now before we even open it to the public, right? If there's this idea that could you use a gate that only opens to owners at the end of that trail? You see what I mean? Like, because I hear that as a suggestion. That sounds, I'm not signing us up necessarily, but Well, no, on the side where it, so that it would only let cars in, you know what I mean? But then maybe you leave it open for pedestrians with like just little ballasts or whatever it is.
We already explored that. That already came up in, what, 2 years ago? That came up. We have the farmer down there, Manfred, CVS Farms. They have numerous, and Joe Farms down there. He's got numerous tractors, numerous guys that run these tractors down there. Hence the Mill Creek Bridge, which is a whole other project where you're gonna need to build a brand new bridge there. There's nothing in your budget for a brand new bridge there. Because Manfred right now, seeing this farm, when he goes down there with his disc touches both sides of that little 6-inch little curve that's there on each side of that bridge.
And how do you keep people from doing anything off that little bridge? You know, Craig?
You
know that if
Well-
you're jumping in there, you know that it's going around.
Well, and
That's been addressed because now he's got multiple employees with multiple tractors going down there. So you've got, basically, it just increases the number of people that have a combination to that road, which actually, to the gate, which actually basically does nothing good to have a gate there. We've already discussed that. That was 2 years ago. That got dropped.
That was at the stakeholders meeting.
Yes.
You said that there was no engagement of them. Yes, you did. He said there was no engagement of property owners prior. And we had what was supposed to be like one representative from city and law enforcement and a property owner, and we invited Mitch on that. But we ended up hosting, how many people attended via Zoom or in person, the parametric stakeholder things? It was favored by Zoom,
We were only invited by Mitch.
I think it was on the computer, I remember.
So basically,
But
what you were, so
can you raise
basically.
your hand if you were at the parametrics meeting that you were referring to, please? Jason,
The parametrics meeting, no.
the stakeholder meeting.
You were on there,
Yeah,
Jason.
you were on that call. Okay, and I believe cooks were on the call, and I don't know about parking.
Nope. And that was because we reached out.
Anyway, I just wanted to correct the record on
For the
this.
city,
Go
what
ahead.
he's getting is the city did not reach out.
Yeah.
I found parametric people, that's how I met Calvin. Then I spread the word, and that's where we shared the links so they can get on.
Which is great, but we have not identified our stakeholder representing adjacent property owners yet. We ran into you, so we invited you, but it was always intended. And you can go back in our minutes and check.
So Mindy, can I ask a question really quickly? Because we did talk about signs, and I just don't know personally. I know there's a no trespassing sign down there. Is there a sign that says no water access?
No.
Yes.
I have one.
Oh, okay. But I mean, I'm literally here to try to be helpful. Do you think having a sign that says this is not a trail for water access, no water access this way, would that would that discourage somebody?
Maybe one person.
Okay, yeah.
So we own property, Gun Club owns property on both sides of the road, from 13 to the first corner. Every 50 feet along the Wall Forest Road, we have a sign that says no trespassing at the Gun Club, private property. We still have people come on our property.
Well,
Can I ask a question?
oh, sure.
Where do you feel pressure from somewhere to make this happen, this bike path, is there?
Me?
I mean, no, like all proponents, is there pressure to get this done? I mean, think of avoiding this whole thing by you getting rid of the liability and the cost with inflation now. I mean, who knows how much this is going to cost? You could that Canby property could be donated to the Audubon Society for bird watching. I mean, just as the example, it doesn't have to be made into a bike path. There are corridors, like this is special corridor, the river and no fences in there. It's a wildlife corridor. There are some instances where it's better to leave certain special places like this alone.
Well, and I guess,
If you search for alternatives to the bike path, like a.
From someone who's not from this community and just like, I honestly don't care whether this trail happens or not, but you have an opportunity here, right? Like the city is coming to you right now and they're saying, one, what are your issues that you're having here now? And how can we help you? We may not be able to help you, but how can we help you? Like, is there anything that we can do, right? Like, whether the city develops this trail or not, right now they own that land. And so that's actually a good thing for you as adjacent landowners right now, because they're coming to you and they're saying, what could we do to make this better, right? Like he's talking about a gate. Yeah, maybe it can't work because of these issues, but what else can we do to limit traffic down there? What else can we do to abate trespass? What are those issues? You all can just say, screw you all, you didn't come to us early enough. You know, human nature is ugly, but people are using this corridor and they're gonna use this corridor, right? Right? Like no, they're not going to. I mean, they are right.
If you can do what you can now to make it as good as you can, sure, that's great, but they haven't even come to us with that.
They're coming to you now though. And so you have an opportunity.
I appreciate that. I so appreciate due diligence. You can respect that. I understand. But to just come at us with just a one track, we just got $150,000. I understand how it's work. I get it. This is how you do it. But from our perspective, that's why we're reacting this way. For me personally, all I wanted to ask, like how the real questions I think that we want to know is how are you going to protect our personal safety? How are you going to protect my right to farm? How are you going to protect that kid that's 7 years old that runs out to my orchard and gets run over by a tractor? How are you going to do that? Put up a big fence, put up the wall. Well, Trump tried to put up a wall and they said some 7-year-old could climb right over it. So how's that going to stop that? That's what we want to answer those questions.
So I've worked on, I mean, so for you all, I've worked on a lot of trails that are in agricultural areas. And so like some of those trails have developed for farmers swing gates, where when you need to cross on your land, because you usually do it in the same spot, I'm guessing, you open up a swing gate and blocks the trail on both sides. And you have a corridor that you can drive your equipment through, and no trail user, no truck, no nothing can get through when you're doing that. So, I mean, there's opportunities like that. I'm not trying to sell you this trail. I'm saying this is a chance for you all, A, to make the corridor better as it is now. And
Yeah, we
B,
thought about this. We thought about the issues that we're going to be causing. Like, I love the dual swing gate. So you're telling me you're going to fence on the.
I'm not saying anything.
Which, by the way, what, 90+% is the trails all EFU on both sides, right to farm. How are you going to protect both ways? I don't care if the person on the trail, man, use that. I love being outside. I want people to do that.
So the city needs to know the issues of how you need to use your land along this road corridor, along this proposed potential trail, so that they can figure out these issues. Like now's when we can get at this. And it may be that, oh my gosh, it's so insurmountable that the city council says, you know what, we don't want to do this, or we do. But we don't know any of this, and they don't know any of this until we get it. So what I would encourage you to do, and this is your homework, it's on you on this one, is to take the time to start putting together some bullet points. It doesn't have to be good English, doesn't have to be good grammar, spelling. I don't think the city nor I care. What I would love for you all to do is just either handwritten or type it up via email and just bullet out the issues, like organize it with issues, and then potential solutions that you see that could make your life better. What you think the city could do currently to make your life better.
And I was gonna just offer, and yes, and I know Nick has been, and yes, but that I also just want to note that this isn't the only opportunity for engagement. I understand what you're saying, and I'm not disputing that there hasn't been more outreach. But what I am offering as someone who lives in this community, who happens to live, off of township, maybe not directly near you folks, but about, I don't know, 3 minutes away. I hear what you're saying. I know that they do, but we're just some city folks or the Park Service saying like, we hear you, engage with us, let us know. When I say this isn't the only opportunity for engagement, I mean all of those things that he offered, but also if you're the kind of person that just likes to offer your input over a cup of coffee, I love coffee. If it's a soda pop, I still love coffee. No, but that I can only prove it to you in time that we're here to listen and that I'm here to engage with you. Some of you I know, so some of you know that I'll show up and bug you. Some of you are new friends tonight. Some of you I'll get to know better. I don't know your names yet, but I'll engage with you in the grocery store or at trap practice with the 15-year-old, kid in my life who loves trap practice. But we hear you, and this is our opportunity to start the conversation. It's not the only opportunity to have the conversation. So I just wanted to offer that because there's lots of feelings, right? There's lots of feelings, and while some of them are the same, someone who works their land versus someone who has kids on their land versus someone who's new or a century lived their whole life. Some of the issues are the same. Some of them are a little bit different. Roll your eyes if you want. I would roll my eyes at me too. I truly believe it's an opportunity for me as a city staff person to work with you. And one of the things that I also wanted to note is that, the city. Now, I'm not going to talk about what happened before. I hear it, but we do a lot of work. How we do budgets, how we set projects into place. Tim said earlier, nobody has reached out to me. We just kind of got the green light to start working on the logging trail bridge at maybe the last city council meeting. So we're still excited that we get to do some work that we've identified for as long as I've lived here. And so I'm just saying that there's opportunities to engage, but there's not just in a room like this on Zoom and recorded, but coming to public meetings or, in the future, which could be not tomorrow, but a decade from now, or, a generation from now. We don't have that crystal ball, like the attorney has said, Joe, not Joe. We don't just call him the attorney. He's Joe. He's a nice guy. But that, that with having these lists, with signing in, giving the contact information, it allows me to do a better job of reaching out to you and serving you so that it becomes less of, we've never heard from you. You're telling us this plan is going to happen tomorrow. What are you going to do about it today? And then it becomes more of a conversation. I can only prove that to you. So if you'd like me to, I would like to prove it to you. So please make sure that you signed in if you didn't. I do see Neil's hand. I know there was a couple other people.
I didn't answer that. I just wanted to know who's driving this, pushing this to get this path through. And have you ever discussed alternatives to it? Is this the thing? Is not going to be anything else? And who's really pushing for this to go through?
I guess I could share, I think, so we had a longtime senior planner here who had a personal relationship with Mr. Traverso. They were friends. And so she kind of had so many conversations with him about this and the family that they ended up donating this to the city kind of in his name because he wanted to do it, but then he passed away, right?
This is a friend, a senior planner?
It was a friend. It was Matilda Dees. I don't necessarily want to put, names out there, although that's part of the public record. So I'm comfortable with that. But the notion is this became something that the city then and the gentleman back there, I forget your name, sir, but it's true. It became both a asset, but also a liability for us. And so we really are trying to figure out what to do with it. And part of the process of the master planning our parks is to see if this is even going to bubble up near the top. But to answer your question, nobody in particular is driving this, although we have Mindy here is the chair of the Bike and Pedestrian Committee, and they are interested in having more biking opportunities and more pedestrian opportunities. So, yeah. And then, I won't steal your thunder. I'll let you answer the rest. Yeah, please.
Also, the extension of the logging road has been part of the Canby Transportation Plan from 2010. It has been in the Parks Plan since how old is our old Parks Plan? 20
years. Yeah.
20 years. And it has been also on the Clackamas County Active Transportation Plan, and it's been in the Parks Plan before. And in the one that they're updating now, it was in that. It's kind of all over the place. So I don't think it's one driving force, but it has been a desire for transportation for parks, and also part of the 2013 city vision plan that was adopted. So it's in a multitude of places, if that helps.
City council. So that's a great. Yeah, let me, that's an excellent question. I appreciate that. Again, I think it helps I want to reinforce, we've said it a bunch of times, and I don't mean to keep beating on this drum, but the only thing that's happened so far is an aspirational plan has been explored. That's really what's happened. If the city owns the property, so I'm hearing the feedback, and we really do appreciate it. And I really like what Joe said a little bit ago, is like, we're here because we want to help. That's really, we have no hidden agenda. We own this property. We realize we have a responsibility to that ownership. Whatever the future of that is to be determined. We own the property today, so we are responsible, and we want to be good neighbors for you. And that's why we've gotten some help with how we facilitate discussions and all this stuff. So what I'm really hearing though is there's kind of two components that we're dealing with. One is we have the here and now, which is we already own it. We can talk about all these plans. That's somewhere out there to be determined or not or whatever. But we're already here because we own it today, and I appreciate all the feedback. This is really helpful for city staff to hear this, because we sometimes hear things indirectly or we don't get all of the information, and that's why we invited all of you here, so you could just tell us what your thoughts are. We do appreciate it. I really sincerely mean that. So we have to deal with the current ownership regardless, and how it came to be and all that. And Joe just gave a little brief synopsis of that. There's probably a lot more history to that, but here we are. So we want to figure out how to manage it now. And then I want to emphasize, this is the part I wanted to say at the beginning to your question. Thank you for asking, is all of the decisions that lie in front of us, ultimately, as long as the city owns this, the city council makes those final decisions. And I want to emphasize, there have been no decisions made about developing this property yet. There's been only, and Mindy, great job of explaining why would we even aspire to want to think about building something outside the city limits. There's a lot of history there as well, and there's some desire and some aspirations to do that. The city was, because of the efforts of the Bike and Pedestrian Committee, the city got a grant to do that plan. The parametrics plan was a city-led process, kind of spearheaded by the Bike and Ped Committee. We got a grant for that. So it was like an opportunity to have explore this idea of if we were going to build this pathway, what it would look like and what kind of things we would be dealing with. So that doesn't mean that that's an absolute. It doesn't mean that any decision has been made. It just simply means that there's an exploratory idea. And perhaps we, in hindsight, and some of us are new and some of us are just catching up on things, or there's been some changes in staff. The person that was with our staff that was kind of leading this effort is not with us anymore. He went on to do something different, and some of us are involved in different levels here. But so perhaps, I'll just say it, perhaps in hindsight, we should have had this meeting before we even did the parametrics plan. And I get that, but neither here nor there.
That's the first time everybody's shaking their head yes in agreement in the entire room. Everybody just soak that in for a second.
I wasn't saying that to try to suck up to everybody but it, in hindsight, sure, you look at things and you go, yeah, we could have probably done something like this initially, but I don't even think, I really sincerely don't think anybody knew for sure how this even was going to unfold and what this means. So really, truly, we're still at a start point. We're not sure what we're doing. Again, the ultimate answer is that at the end of the day, whatever happens, we're going to have some discussion and process, and decision-making ultimately lies in the hands of our city council. They have made no decisions about this so far. They have only not no decision. The contract to do the parametrics plan, I think, was approved by the council because at a certain money level, they have to approve things. So that was a decision that said, go ahead and explore this and just see what, kind of plan might look like if we were ever going to do this. But, and that's not either a for or against this idea. It's just looking right down the middle of it, which is, here's the step we're at. We just did an exploratory, aspirational, what could this look like if we were going to do this this non-motorized transportation corridor? You all get to motorize on it because you do have rights in the deed that say you can access your property. We totally understand that. We respect it, and we'll work with you on that no matter what happens. But I guess that's kind of my big sort of final point that I even wanted to say, is just to make sure that everybody understood clearly that's the limit of the decision-making that has happened to date. That is literally it. And so please understand that. And we want to continue to engage. And thank you, Jamie, for how you explained that this is not one conversation and then we're going to carry on and do things. It's a starting point of a conversation, and there's lots more to have. One thing I was sitting here thinking about, and I kind of leaned over and asked Joe if he knew, but just so we can understand this, and this has been tremendously helpful just to even understand what are we managing today right now as it exists, basically undeveloped except for the kind of, basic road that goes in there, is before the city owned this, I presume there was, it wasn't it was privately owned, but it wasn't blocked off. Is that a correct statement?
Scott?
Yeah.
When Traverso owned it, the landowners along there did the maintenance and did take care of it. Traverso, from my understanding, I've only been there 19 years, rarely did anything.
Okay.
To assist in it unless he needed to go down there.
Okay.
The road was blocked.
Okay. So we could understand, I heard some comments about filling in some potholes and stuff like that. This gives us an opportunity to go back as a staff and talk about, is there something we should do to work out? Should we be doing more of that, or should we be putting in place some arrangements with you, the property owners, to say you can do that, or whatever. I'm just kind of hypothetically, like maybe there's some things that we need to go back and figure out how we do a better job of that. But I guess what I was getting at though is there seems to be a sense that I'm hearing that since the city's owned it, some of the problems have gotten worse. I don't know if that's a true statement or if it's just an assumption, but what I'm asking you, this is a real question. I don't mean this in any way of criticism. I literally mean what has caused that since the city's owned it that's different than what it used to be, so we can understand how we can perhaps fix that.
To answer your question, I think it's the fact that you have put it out that it is now public property.
Yeah. The promotion of it becoming a trail really got big on the biking community. We started seeing a lot more bicycle traffic through there that we didn't see before. Another issue, and I'm not gonna put this on the city, this is my beef with Amazon, with whoever does the mapping software that's out there, whether it's Amazon Flex, I don't know. But when it's listed as a public road, my driveway, and it's in there, I don't know who has control, because I've called, I've emailed, to no avail, it will not get taken off. And so then, you know,
And I think when it flips from private to city owned in kind of the mapping system, when people are looking it up, it looks like it's a city part of that system. And
So-
that's what
and it's a
really changed.
connector.
So that's really, so
Access.
that's, and I think that's what Dan was partially trying to ask earlier, is literally just a direct question of what can we do right now today? And so this is the type of stuff, like perhaps we can look into those things. I know we just did a thing recently with the addressing that Google was misaddressing our new fire station on the north end that hasn't quite opened yet, but is going to. And we did something with Google and got them to fix that. So I'm just saying, yes, thank you for that feedback on that. But what I wanted to, I know there were other comments or questions, and I'll stop and be done, but I want to emphasize something that Joe said a little bit ago, which is it's publicly owned. That just simply means that we're the owner of it, but we are not, it might be inadvertent that there's this idea that it's a future trail, so maybe people want to use it, but we are actually not promoting it as an open recreational asset right now today. We are not promoting that intentionally. Now, there might be some indirect, there's a plan on a trail for some future stuff, and maybe that, so maybe also to ask, to help answer one of the questions that Dan asked was, how can we sort of downplay that promotion? Because actually the condition that it's in and our very, very minimal maintenance that we're doing as a city, we don't want to promote access until we're ready to deal with it as a public amenity that is safe. And it's not in a condition right now that we would want to say as a public agency, please go use this for your recreation. That's not our intention. We're not trying to invite people. I think we're inadvertently inviting people by having it being discussed in the public forum. That's not an intent of like saying, please come use it now. So what can we do to tamper that down is a question, like, the sign thing and gates and that kind of stuff doesn't seem to be very well received. Is there something else we can do to help you with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
If the city council would just go from the top of the hill to the gun club, drive in the right-hand lane down there. We've got, over 250, 275 high schoolers. We've got 5 different high schools that shoot high school trap down there. So you've got all these kids driving down there and they're passing on the road. The right-hand lane has got probably at least a 40 to 40, maybe 50-foot pothole in it. What's going to happen sooner or later is one of those kids is going to be driving down there and they're going to pass somebody and hit that thing. There's going to be a head-on collision down there. City property. To me, that's one of the liability issues I was talking about. Is I think it just passed the thing. What has happened over the year is, Crown Zellerback built it back in the 50s, 60s, whatever, and they paved. They actually, I think chip sealed or whatever. But there's like a 3-inch chunk that's missing. So all you got to do is just drive from the top of the hill to the gun club. You'll see what I'm talking about.
Okay.
In the right-hand lane.
All right.
I think it fits that.
Jerry's here too.
Relieves the city of a lot of liability.
Okay.
Right there.
That's great feedback.
And a speed sign.
Okay. That's great feedback. Thank you.
It seems like when the land donation took place in 2017, it really started building up steam when it got put on social media. And it got on Canby Now, and there was a lot of discussion about the bike trail amongst the biking community. And that this was it was accessible. And so my thought is, why doesn't the city of Canby, and I think I've asked this, why can't there be a statement put out by the city of Canby on social media where a lot of people look Canby now, whatever, make some statements about this. It goes farther than signs do.
Yeah, we can do
And
that.
I think that would be very impactful.
We can do, that's free and easy.
Yeah.
And Jamie is our expert and she
Yeah.
wears a lot of hats for the city. And she literally, as you were just starting to talk, I don't know if she was reading your mind ahead, but she literally leaned over and said, we can post stuff on social media and do some of that kind of stuff.
There was a lot of dialogue going on right when the donation took place.
Thank you.
Yeah, the whole Forest Road Trail Facebook
Yeah.
page.
Yes.
So that could be wiped out.
Just to back up Ken's thing, I wanted to say that yet anytime this is put in the public eye, you can put a disclaimer saying this is not a public accessible plan at all, period. Like anytime this is talked about, that should be like the first thing they read, and then they can read about it. Because what they do is they're reading public land and go, oh, wait, okay, great. They don't care about the signs. Just a disclaimer.
I love that idea of adding it as the disclaimer. You know, we can do that also when we talk to city council or when we are engaging on social media, engaging on in our various ways on agendas. It can sit because all of those are public records. So if someone's going in, they read about something else, whatever, and then they see it, that's something that we could include. But then also, you know, like Scott had said, I did get up and said we could do some public engagement. One of the things, so I do wear many hats. One of the things that I do is communications for the city. So we can put out a news release and we can put out some social media and we'll do it through our channels. I could also, and I would look to everybody here to help spread that on your own channels too. One of the things is the city doesn't quite post on Canby now, but if a neighbor or a friend, or maybe there's, we will find somebody, but if one of you says, hey, this is where the city's at, that's something that we can all work on together. And, it is another step that allows us to show you guys that we want to be good neighbors. We're not just paying lip service. So that's something we'll talk about internally. You won't get that information tonight, but you can have I can send the development plan this evening, but that will be coming. And if you just give me a couple of weeks.
And I'll just share too, because I know, I think the city, because I think there was this consideration that it was status quo, meaning it was still closed off, right? And so kind of it was the same as it always was, except out there in social media, people are already bringing it up, apparently. I believe there's been some discussions between our police department and the sheriff's department that when and if this does become more open or some of these issues, I believe that the current sheriff was of the mind that she was going to dedicate some more patrol to the area. That's, it's so slight right now that maybe more doesn't mean that much, but also as we hear all of this stuff, we want to make sure that we're responsive to. So if you guys see stuff, please call it in, you can call into the non-emergency, but you can also call in. And I know sometimes certain things they will say, that's not our jurisdiction, right? But we're going to get better at responding to things and communicating with the sheriff's office about this, because this is now it's our liability now, right? So, it is our problem too. So I just want to make sure that some of these issues do sound like, you're close to the city and it's your slice of heaven. And now the city's kind of touching you a little bit more. And so we need to reply to that too, in a responsible fashion. So just putting that out there.
It's coming up on 9 o'clock. I don't think we're gonna advance this discussion too much any further past 9. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out and being civil. I know you're passionate and you have a right to be passionate about it. and you all were great in terms of how you engaged in this discussion, and you didn't bring any crazy vibes or take this too far. I still want to reiterate my assignment because it really is helpful for the city and I to look at this section. One, okay, so you got a 3-part assignment. You can do this either by handwritten, and you can either take pictures of it and send it to Jamie and or I, or you can mail it or give it to Jamie, or you can email it, or if you don't like typing, writing anything, you can call Jamie, and if Jamie's not available, you can call me or anyone else at the city. We want to know what issues you're having now out there. We want to know what you think the city could do to alleviate those issues and be reasonable. And then how you're using your land now and how a trail would need to be designed to work with that.
And one comment as part of your third point. For the folks that are doing agriculture, this year I may be doing this. Next year I may have to do this because of whether climate change,
right,
markets, whatever. I may change my crops to where I'm suddenly going to be spraying more. I'm going to be spraying less. To look at a snapshot from an agricultural view is tough. Because we have to adapt to where the market is.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And I mean, you just said it, in a sentence, just say it like, I'm doing different things on my land agriculturally. And these are the types of things that, that I might be doing. And here's the issues that I would have with trail use.
My other concern, from a personal standpoint, and it's personal. What does this trail do to my property values? Is the city going to reimburse me for a decrease, diminished value on my property? Is the city going to carry liability insurance so that if a child does get run over, oh, by the way, you've got me on a rider so that I'm protected from it because you aren't doing the right thing on your trail? I have 2 perfect points.
So whatever issues like that you have, again, list them. Talk about how any solutions that you see. Focus both on the now and if the trail gets developed. If you can't even put your brain on the trail gets developed, the city's already said, we want to know what the issues are now and how they could help resolve them. So that's how we can move this discussion forward. Again, thank you so much, everybody, for coming out. I know things maybe weren't handled exactly how you would have liked it, both in the past and even right now, but they're trying and they're going to continue to keep trying. All you can do is put forward your best faith effort to try to see whether they take you up on that. That's my advice. Thanks,
And if you
everybody.
didn't sign in, please sign in just so we can capture that. Take a cookie if you didn't, because we want to be good neighbors. We'll give you a cookie if you leave us when I come to your house. I've got cards and I'm going to stand out back here, say goodbye to people.
Just cheering for a second.